What's up, military millionaires? I'm your host, David Pere, and I am here with Alexander the Great. Alex, how are you doing today?
What's up, man? I feel excellent. Happy to be here.
Yeah, me too. We just got back from BPCon and hang out there, and that was great. But we are here today to talk with Mr. Tim Jackson, who is the author of Real Dope, an in-depth comparison between real estate and the dope game, which is a book that he handed me when we were hanging out in Dallas at the Better Way conference earlier this year. And I really like the concept, right? The idea that real estate is like what he is trying to do is get in front of an audience that is like struggling youth and really help them out and help them find the way to financial freedom. And so Tim is he's a veteran author, as I just mentioned, real estate investor, former City of Dallas zoning commissioner, youth mentor, and he's got 18 years of experience in real estate investing and brokerage. And I just really like his story. And then recently he popped back up on my Instagram again with a new account called No More OGs. And we're going to talk about that because it's a little controversial and I love it. And we're going to dig in. And Tim, welcome to the show, brother. Welcome to the Military Millionaire Podcast, where we teach service members, veterans, and their families how to build wealth through personal finance, entrepreneurship, and real estate investing. I'm your host, David Pere, and together with my co-host, Alex Felice, we're here to be your no BS guides along the most important mission you'll ever embark on, your finances.
Vehicle 1, you're clear to depart friendly lines.
Roger, Vic 1, Oscar Mike. Hey guys, if you're looking to take your investing, business, life, or just yourself to the next level, then I have something for you. The War Room Real Estate Military Mastermind Group is a mastermind group that meets weekly in small groups of 5 to 6 people to help you hold yourself accountable and really experience that growth. But we also have a monthly guest speaker that we bring in, and we've had guest speakers that talk about mindfulness, taxes. We're bringing in somebody to talk about marketing. We bring in very specific topics that will adhere to very broad, any kind of real estate investing or entrepreneurship that you want to do, and will really help you out. And we let you ask these speakers questions and get very personal with them. And then back to the small groups, weekly accountability for what you're trying to achieve and just being surrounded by like-minded people. And they say your network is your net worth. I know that's an overused phrase, but I recommend that you check it out. So just shoot an email to wrmastermind@gmail.com. Once again, that's wrmastermind@gmail.com, and we'll send you some more information.
I appreciate you for having me. It's really fun to sit down and have these conversations, especially with veterans who understand that, we were never supposed to have any money as enlisted members of the military. So, just go to work and die. But love to be in front of a diverse audience and talk to everyone. So let's dive in.
Absolutely. Why don't you give a little bit of your backstory?
Sure, absolutely. So my name is Tim Jackson. My tagline is Mr. Purpose on Demand, Mr. Retired at 37. Born and raised in Dallas, Texas, spent a little time in the military, came back home, started a business. I've always been interested in real estate. So I got into real estate from the sales standpoint, but, quickly realized that the sales agents don't really make as much money as the investors make. So, after having my license for a few years, I obtained a broker's license so I could at least keep all of my commission. But, the definition of a broker is essentially that you're a broker than everyone else because you're paying for everything else. So, bought my first real estate property, just me buying a house for myself, and realized how I could leverage that to not only buy more properties, but literally, one house changed my life. And so started to teach people about that, move my business back to the community where I grew up in, which is in East Dallas, hired people that I went to school with and, just start volunteering in the schools, wrote a book about real estate, specifically comparing real estate to drug sales. To show people if you can sell dope, you can sell a house. It's just moving a brick. You know what I'm saying? You're just moving a package, right? And so made that correlation, spoke a lot of places, became a zoning commissioner in Dallas. And here I am, trolling people on the internet every day about culture.
I love this. Ever since I was a kid, when I did my little petty weed sales business that I had, I felt I don't really consider myself hyper entrepreneurial, but I realized from a very early age that one, sales is sales, and two, the idea that you're going to go off and sort of ignore the standard system of 9 to 5, industrialized labor, that process, whether you're selling drugs, houses, or, starting a business, the idea that you're going to have to break away from the system and do your own thing is extremely similar. And so I love that you made that comparison because I think it's very appropriate.
Yeah, and it was funny because when I would go back to my old neighborhood or see my old friends, they would always say, "Man, you're doing so well. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing?" And I literally had the conversation with a bunch of people, and I just got tired of having the conversation, so I wrote a book. And then I noticed that the book was actually working. People were reaching out to me saying they found my book in the prison system. People were reaching out to me telling me that they found my book and stopped selling drugs. So I was like, "Oh shit, I'm on to something here, right?" Let's keep talking more about this book. Start partnering with different agencies locally. Whether it be the courts or different, law enforcement departments saying, "Hey, when you guys are out there pulling people over and searching them and, taking them to jail for weed, if you see some potential in people, if you understand that you're really about your community, like give them my book." So I've given away hundreds of books just to people that I know who are on the front lines dealing with this issue. So, hey, we gotta solve our own problems. That's the type of person I am. So that's what I did.
I love it because, real estate and financial freedom solves a lot of problems, right? But you took it a step further, which is let's connect with the people who like the idea that you're handing a book about how to get out of the drug trade and into real estate as a way to achieve financial freedom and change your life. And you're finding a way to give it to people who are essentially getting arrested for that. You're literally changing people's lives, which I think is just really cool, right? Because it's okay, financial freedom is great, but 1,000 people reaching financial freedom is one thing, but if you can get 1,000 people to just get from the negative to balance, right? That's a huge step that a lot of people, it's not as sexy to talk about, but it's huge.
No, I agree. And no matter what I'm working on, I always want to alleviate the statement "I didn't know," right? Because when I was in corporate, when I came back from the military and got into the corporate industry, I was a trainer. I was a corporate trainer. So traveling around the world, I actually launched the very first Android phone, in the United States. So, wrote a bunch of curriculum for that, traveled around to different places and trained different companies, cellular companies on the phones. But the goal was to eliminate "I didn't know" so that the customer, if you will, could get the best, have the best result, right, when experiencing the product. So for me, it's well, shit, that works in everything. If I can have a conversation with a kid who all they've seen is, for lack of better words, a bunch of hood shit, and it's well, man, this guy looks just like me and he's from my same neighborhood, but he made it out, which we can talk about that later because I feel that shouldn't even be the premise. But hey, here's the example of what it looks like. And when you provide the example of what it looks like and you just scale that up, then, success or being able to obtain success becomes normal. And it's not associated with, playing a sport or, singing a song or doing a dance. It's actually rooted in business that you can actually scale and teach your family. So that's what I'm all about.
Yeah, it's such a mindset shift. But it sort of always is the saying I've had for the whole year is, the game of life is self versus self. And it's very much you have these people who, if you're in a world where everything like you said, you have to kind of get out. You have to get out of that world, and you're I can give you a piece of that. But the reality is, as I said before, it's sales is sales. Whether you're selling something that's illegal, which has a very low ceiling for success for basically everybody, or houses, which has a very high ceiling for success, but I bet you probably know people that sell drugs that are better at sales than people who do very well in real estate. And it really is just this idea that you can go do it. And excuse me, I don't mean to speak out of what I don't know, but it seems like if you can change what you think about the world and who you're around, then the sky becomes the limit. And that whether you're talking about people selling drugs or even me who's seen some reasonable success and trying to get to the next level, it's the exact same problem. It's that I have to, get a bit bigger, abundant mindset. I have to hang out with this other class, set of people. And so I really, just to draw back, I really like this analogy a real lot.
Cool. Well, listen, let's talk about it some more.
It's like the I had to look it up because I was about to say Nietzsche, which I knew was wrong, but Plato. It's like the old the allegory of the cave, right? Where like people are in the dark and you get one to leave, and once his eyes adjust to the light, and he tries to go back in and pull people out of the dark, and none of them want to leave the cave because that's their comfort zone. It's.
I literally just used that analogy like yesterday. You know, and it's there's a slippery slope. It's a catch-22 because different people have different factors placed against them, right? We can say that, right? But once you learn something and once you know something, you can't unlearn it. And what happens is not just from, my target audience, but anyone. Like most of the times when I talk to people, especially being in the military, like we were the ones who left. Like I always tell people, no one joins the military because shit is going well in their life. Like you don't wake up and say, oh shit, all my bills are paid. I live on this ranch. I'll just go enlist in the military, right? No, that's not how it worked, right? It was
rich people don't join the military.
They don't. And if they do, it's because there's a tradition in their family, and they typically go in as an officer. Is that fair to say?
Rich people don't enlist. They want to be a politician one day.
Exactly. That's the road to being a politician, right? The people that I'm talking about are the people that's from, every military person has heard this. The people that's from bumfuck Egypt, or the people that are from, just the hood of the hood. Because think about even recruiting. Like if you look at just the demographics of recruiters, like they don't go to the affluent areas and recruit. They come to whatever hood USA, right? So we're the ones in our family that actually left the environment to make ourselves better, per se. But we're also the ones who feel like no one really understands us because we understand the sacrifice that we had to, make. And that goes across the board. When I tell people, when you have that entrepreneurial spirit, when you know that there's something inside of you, that purpose, you got to get out of your environment and get around people who, one, you would normally never get around, right? But two, you have to have an open mind. And people think I'm crazy because from a political standpoint, I always tell people I hate to use the word independent, but I vote and lobby based on what's going to benefit me, right? I don't subscribe to anything that's not going to benefit me, right? And people say, well, how could you be like that? Well, shit, how could you not be like that? Like, it's all about, bettering yourself. But when I have these conversations with people who won't come outside and look into the light, if you will, or who don't understand like how our brains think, I'm crazy. But then you get into a room with a bunch of crazy people and we're normal. If that makes any sense. So my goal is to put a bunch of people into a room with a bunch of people that they would never fucking get into the room with and figure out, oh shit, there's a different way to do it. Let's do it. And that's why in our mentoring program, we stress traveling. Like you guys, Alex, were you also in the military as well?
Yeah, bro. Traveled quite a bit in the military, and I'm glad you said that because it unlocked my brain to a way of the world that I would have never gotten otherwise.
And think about that. Like when you travel, the first thing as a kid or even as a young adult, you say, man, they dress different here. They speak different here, right? What's cool in my city isn't cool here. But if it works with fashion, it also works with making money, right? Like I live in Dallas, Fort Worth. The real estate market is always good in Dallas, Fort Worth. It's never a bad market. I don't care if the market is going to shit in California or it's going to shit in, somewhere on the East Coast. It's always good here, right? So when I'm talking to people about real estate here, if they're from Detroit, or if they're from Las Vegas or California, they may not understand. I tell people, hey, you need to get out of your area and go see something from a different perspective. In contrast, if I go to an area that's super depressed, I can see the value because you can't find $100,000 house anywhere, right? Like meet someone in that area, find out, go to these meetups, get online, find the good property managers, purchase real estate there, and sit back and collect your check. But you can't tell the people who are around you who aren't into that or who don't think like that, hey, we should do this, because they're going to always find the problem in the solution, right? So I said all that to say, typically I like to get around people who think differently. And I like to travel because I always learn something new based on going somewhere different and experiencing something different. And we take our boys to different places and expose them to different things so they can get out of that, that neighborhood mindset of thinking that this is the only way it is, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, traveling, sort of on that vein, traveling anywhere else in the world, you quickly I mean, depending on where you go, but almost anywhere else you go, you're going to quickly realize that in America, you live a lavish lifestyle, even if you're not doing that good. And so for me, half of that is gratitude. I'm like, okay, wow, I just kind of lucked into this. I didn't, as Obama famously said, I didn't build this. I just showed up, right? It's already done for me. And I'm grateful to take, advantage of that. But also I like what you said about, if you only know your market, then it's hard when you see it every day and you're like, well, prices are up. Now it's harder. And it's like your prices are low compared to somebody else. That's why, we see it in these smaller markets. The California buyers, they come in, they scoop everything up and you're like, well, that's not a good deal. And you're like, yeah, but it is compared to what I can buy where I am. And so the travel lets you see the arbitrage and the opportunity where you are and how kind of good you have it in many ways. I mean, I love that you live in Dallas because that's a booming metropolis. And if you can make it work there, then, where David lives in really the middle of nowhere that nobody should ever live or go. If you can't make it there, right?
Consequently,
like
I recruited
grand
here.
Probably goes a long way out there. Where if you live in Dallas or LA, it's like, dude, you're not even getting a down payment now. So I love that. Travel opens up your eyes to things you have no idea about.
Absolutely. And the funny thing about it is 5 years ago, $100,000 could get you 3 houses here in Dallas. I can remember a time before I became a zoning commissioner when I was really studying our market and we had our land bank and we had a lot of things going on. I was begging people to buy these properties for $25,000, $20,000, $15,000. And the number one thing they would say to me, Alex and David, is, well, I don't want to live over there. And I'm like, I didn't tell you to move over there. I told you to buy the property. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not telling you to abandon, your neighborhood, but, and I've said some controversial stuff and I've said it on platforms where everyone on the platform looks like me. And I'll sit on platforms where I'm the only person who looks like me. Right. I have this very unique perception of gentrification since I've been a zoning commissioner. Because I used to set up these meetings every 2 weeks, like, hey guys, we have rezoning, like come to the meetings. I'm the person that's going to be voting on if this gets approved, like come to the meetings, and no one would show up. And then when a big development would come a year later, because it takes 6 months to a year for this stuff to happen. And there's other factors that go into it. I'm not going to discount it, and I've spoken on the record, but it's like, well, guys, we're giving away our properties because we're not showing up to the meetings. We're not pushing back on the taxes. We're not pushing back. And then once the property is acquired or it's redeveloped, then we say, man, that's gentrification. I took a lot of heat. From black people from saying that. You know what I'm saying? But I'm also the guy who's been inviting people like, black, white, brown, whatever you want to, call yourself, to these meetings to show like, hey, all you got to do is show up and push back a little bit. That's it. You don't have to sell off the property. Put a will and a trust in place so that if grandma or granddad dies, you can keep that property. That's not just that's an everyone issue, right? Because this happens in every community, right? But if I say something out loud and say, hey, this is wrong, then it's like, well, I get accused of, whatever I'm being accused of. And it's like, no. Education is going to be what's going to take it to the next level. And we have access to information. I don't know how old you guys are, but when the internet came out, there was this thing called an AOL CD that it gave you 15 minutes worth of internet, and you couldn't talk on the house phone if you were on the internet. Like, that's how fucking old I am. I'm old as shit, right? Like, if we wanted to,
I'm older than you.
I will never forget that sound of dial-up.
And then
you'd be like on the phone
when,
and you'd hear it, and you're screaming down the house, "I'm on the phone with my girlfriend. Wait!"
We're on the Juno mail. Like, I'm old as shit, and I tell people this, and they laugh. It's like, when I researched what a real estate broker was, I had to go to the library to research what a real estate broker was. Right? I'm that old. And when I tell my son and his friends, or even kids that are just graduating, because we still, mentor in schools, they're like, I can't imagine having to go to the library to use the internet for longer than 15 minutes. So now that we have the access to the information, we have to start, using that information for our benefit, because we can use that information for everything else. Let's use it for our benefit. But, some people get it, some people don't. And I'm learning that you just got to start leaving people behind and grasping on the people who get it, if that makes any sense.
Tim, as much as I am known to say controversial things without fear, I am not going to comment. I'm not going to comment on the appropriateness of gentrification to the Black community. But I will say,
it's going to be controversial, and then I'll get yelled at for bringing it up because I can defend it both ways, right? But go ahead.
No, but I will say, like, just my personal experience, I'll speak on when I got my, I pulled my head out of my ass at 31. I was a career fuck up for a long, long time in my life. And I turned it around by doing a lot of things that we're talking about. I wasn't selling drugs. I was already out of the military. I was just, a dumb alcoholic with bad habits I had good, human being friends, but not, they had no ambition. And I was just getting ready to dwindle the drain here at any day. And I started turning my life around. And then as I started buying real estate, just like you said, I'm like, hey, look, it's 2014. There's properties on the market for $30,000 and we can go buy some of these and they're going to go up in value. And so we can either capitalize on this or we can miss out. And I started doing this and I didn't do as, in retrospect, I was too scared. I didn't do as much as I should, but I did a good chunk, more than most. And I tried to get my friends to come along, of various backgrounds. Hey, this is an opportunity to turn your life around. I'm going to do it, right? I'm going to do this. And I could not drag people along. Many of them, some I could, right? Some, like you, I didn't write a book, but I blogged, we do this show and we try to get these people to make good decisions. And it's really interesting how difficult it is. And then now those same people, it's a total mind fuck. They're like, oh, you did so good with that real estate. You got so lucky. You did so good with that. Look, you're killing it. This and that. I'm like, I begged you to come do this. And now you're sitting here 10 years later, struggling about money, struggling about these stresses, debt. What are you going to do? And you're still telling me the same thing. I'll get into it one day. Oh, I wish I could do it like you. And I'm like, dude, I have no idea I just don't know how people think. The circumstances in their life must not have been right. I must not have said it to them right. I feel actually sometimes tremendous guilt about I couldn't get some of my really, really good friends who now have financial difficulties. I'm like, dude, you could have had it. You could have solved this. You could have solved this for good. And it's very frustrating.
So what you just proved to me is something that I say often, is that some of the problems that we think that we have that are exclusive tend to be inclusive to everyone, right? The people closest to you, they're just not going to fuck with you when it's time to make progress because they don't see you as a professional. They see me as Timmy. They see as Davey, little Alex. They put that nickname on there, right? And they don't take us seriously until we start winning. And then once we start winning, it's, oh, well, you got lucky. And I always joke with my mother. My mother's my biggest fan. She's probably sold more of my books than anyone. But I'll never forget when my mother called me one day and she's like, wow, I just saw you on the news. And I'm like, that's what validated me. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what made me official, right? Like you've been watching me work my ass off for the last decade. You watch me spend hundreds of thousands of my own money to create opportunities. But seeing me on the news was the icing on the cake, right? And I tease her about this, but sometimes you just got to acknowledge that people aren't going to really fuck with you if they've known you your whole life. Like you have to step out of your circle and meet perfect strangers. When I met David, we talked. I sent him an email that night, like, hey man, it was nice to meet you. Like, I don't give a fuck if he doesn't respond. He just doesn't respond, right? Like, I'm not gonna lose any sleep. But what if he does respond? Like, well, then that gives me a connection to someone else that can teach or expose me and the people that are in my downline, if you will, to new information that we wouldn't have never gotten. Oftentimes, you just got to open your mouth and you got to throw away some of the preconceived notions, right?
And now, thanks to that, you met me. So you just leveled up, bro. You're in good shape now. Wow. Wow. David,
you don't even know it yet.
Good intro.
You know what? It's funny. It's just one of those things where, I've been on the record I've pissed off everyone. I've pissed off my people. I pissed off black people. I've had a whole entire leadership team at a real estate company quit because of some comments that I made. I was a part of the leadership team, and the next day everyone quit because they were upset with me. Like, my thing is, I'm just going to stand on what I believe, on logic, right? And I think in today's society, we don't stand on logic anymore. We stand on emotion. And so, if logic is the leader, and principle, is the foundation, then, everything else just falls in line, and you align yourself with people who use logic, and you kind of, say, well, the hell with everyone else. And that's kind of where I'm at. Right. And I hold people accountable, like hold me accountable. If I fuck up, tell me I fucked up, but then give me an opportunity to correct it. Don't just walk around treating me like Twitter, because Twitter is the place of no accountability. It's a place where people just go to tell you you're not shit, and then they wake up the next morning and remind you how much you're not shit, right? But give me an opportunity to at least correct it, right? So.
Well, the thing that the three of us share, and the thing that I'm hearing a lot from you, is, there's this idea, a lot of it, I hope, comes from the military for us. We kind of dogged about the military, about poor, rich people don't join the military, but the military changed my life, for the better, because, I sort of wasn't going anywhere without them. And they really, in 4 years, by the time I got out, I was like, you guys are slowing me down now. And I'm tremendously grateful for that. But what they taught me was, two big things that, I'm not going to do the, kids today, trope, because that's been done since, you mentioned Plato. Socrates had a piece about that. He's like, the kids today, they have no respect. So that trope has been going on for 1800 years. But I will say, the military taught me never to make excuses. And if you make excuses for yourself, whether it's, a racial thing, a socioeconomic thing, parents, like whatever it is, valid or not valid, it's not helpful, because the only person that can really help you is yourself, really, always. And whether that's fair or not, it doesn't matter. The only person who can really help you is yourself. And the other one that comes right down to the same thing is, radical responsibility. And so those two ideas are really like kissing cousins. Like, I'm the only one that can fix my problems, and I can only do that if I don't make excuses. And so that whole piece you just said, I loved it, because that's sort of what I heard. You're like, hey, I can make people in my community mad because they don't agree with that idea, and they can say that it's some other reason, but the reality is, whatever the reasons for the unfairness that you've been doing this life, legitimate or not, doesn't matter as much as the fact that the only person who's going to fix that unfairness is yourself.
Can I piggyback on that really quick?
Please. Yeah, of course. That's
I agree with everything you're saying, right? Here's my thing. I always tell people, because, I've always been the person that, if I see something I'm going to stand on, I'm going to fight for the principle, right? Like, I can't pretend like certain factors don't impact others as more so as it does some. Like, as a black man, there's certain things that I'll deal with that you guys would never experience, right? My master's degree is in history, and I studied the plight of Black Americans from the Great Migration to where we are today, right? And there's a lot of fucked up shit that happened. What we have to do, however, is change the response to it. Like, one of my favorite books is The Success Principles. And it talks about, E plus R equals O. Event plus response equals outcome. Event plus response equals outcome. If I feel like someone is doing something to disenfranchise me, I have to ask myself, well, what's the response to that? I can't just say, hey, you're fucking me over. I have to actually do something about that. And I don't care how anyone feels. The response to 99% of our problems is economic, right? If you can respond to someone economically, then you typically won't get fucked with. That's really what it is. If someone comes and steals your content right now, you guys can get on the internet and say they're stealing our content, or you can send them a cease and desist, and then you can sue their ass, right? And then you can be really petty and draw it out as long as you want to and bankrupt them, right? Like, that's the way that I'm learning how to do stuff, right? You have to find the response to the event to get a different outcome. And what I see with a lot of people where I'm from is that our responses are never changing. I tend to follow a lot of people on social media or read books or listen to news outlets that I would never listen to, people who I don't even agree with, because the way that I've been doing it, it obviously isn't fucking working. So I got to hear how someone else is doing it, right? But that's taboo. Like, no matter your color, like, there's people who are Democrats who would never watch Fox News a day in their life. These are white people. When I was on the commission, most of my peers on the commission, stone cold, straightforward Democrats, right? And when they would ask me about politics, I'm like, I kind of lean in the middle. I don't agree with that. And they would be appalled that as a black person, I didn't agree with them, right? And it's just like, no, like, I can think for myself. But they would never, as white people, watch Fox News, right? So then it becomes more so on how you perceive things, right? And like you said, accountability is big. And I think that accountability across the board is, the world would be a better place if everyone would just allow themselves to be held accountable, but then build on the mistake. Like, I don't have to remind you that I was right. I was right. I knew it. You were right. You knew it. Okay, we acknowledge that. Let's move the fuck on and build something, right? And that's kind of where society is stuck now.
Tim, you have a level of maturity that just exceeds people and they don't realize it. I'm sorry to tell you.
People fucking hate me, man.
Yeah.
But that's why.
Because it's very easy, not correct. It's very easy to say my problems are because of something else. And then I can absolve myself of the responsibility. It's much harder to be like, I'm messing up too. It's not fair. And I'm not helping. That's harder.
You guys, I signed up for the military when I was 18 years old, and I was on my first deployment when I was 17 years old, and I was on my first deployment before my 19th birthday, right? Like overseas, you know what I'm saying? Operation Enduring Freedom.
Where'd you go?
My friend, I went to
I was going to say, now we're going down the rabbit hole because we both did that.
Where'd you go?
I know. So my first duty, I went to PSAB. We set up PSAB, and we were part of the group that essentially set up everything for Operation Iraqi Freedom. So we were actually the ones, I guess this shit isn't classified anymore. We were the ones that were essentially laying the framework for everything to come in Iraq, right? I was an 18-year-old kid. My friends were starting their second semester of college, going to frat parties and shit. And, you know, I'm riding gunny at the top of the damn, you know, I'm on the 60, you know, during a sandstorm, you know what I'm saying? Having to stay after everyone's working a 12-hour shift. I'm the one that's riding at the top. Now I got to clean my weapon for 3 hours because it's full of, like, that was my reality, right? So there is no excuse. Like you guys know, you were military, like proper preparation prevents piss poor performance. Piss poor performance promotes pain. Like you just got to fucking find the answer and get to it. And that's so taboo for a lot of people, to the point to where whenever you mention accountability, it's, oh man, you're this, you're that, you're selling out, or oh man, you're agreeing with this person. It's like, no, I'm just saying, like, you know, let's be accountable. Let's call out the bullshit, but then at the same time, let's create a response to it so that it's not emotional, it's more strategic. And regardless of what you're responding to, it doesn't matter what, if someone is squatting in your house, hopefully you're not going to just go over there and beat their ass, right? You know, you're not going to go back to the old you. He's like, David's like, well, you know, right. You're going to reach out to them. You're going to send them some notices. You're going to, you know, reach out to the municipality, let them know what's going on. Here in Texas, it's really easy. You just file a case and then the constables kick them out, right? That's why I love real estate down here, because there's no bullshit red tape. But if I go and I just kick their ass out of my house and I physically abuse them, then I have to follow what comes with that. I'm going to likely get sued. I'm going to go to jail. All of my assets that are not protected are going to be at risk. Like, there's a process to it. And a lot of things that we do is because of pride. No, you got to move pride to the side and use logic. And I think if people start using logic more, a lot of the bullshit that we call culture, a lot of the bullshit that we call normal, we'll start realizing how fucked up that shit is. And then we can start, you know, reversing it. You know what I'm saying? Because if I'm deployed, I can't think about certain things while I'm deployed. I'm just trying to make sure that we don't die today, right? Does that make sense? Or I think it makes sense to you guys, but it doesn't make sense to people who didn't really go through it.
No, I love it. And I was going to say this earlier when you mentioned like the Fox News thing. You know, one of my favorite things when people are like very vehement about a ideology is to just be like, okay, awesome. What have you read or researched that contradicts that? Like what's the other, like, have you looked at the other side of the coin? Right. And because of confirmation bias is a real thing. Like my favorite example lately, and I just did it. Google, can salads make you gain weight? Oh, look, there's a bunch of articles right there on Google about how salads are bad for you. Most people would probably be able to assume that salads are, generally speaking, a somewhat healthy alternative, but you can quick search. Oh, I found some stuff to validate my feelings and how I think about this. And so I think like where you're talking about looking at things from different perspectives and taking the accountability and actually being willing to receive that criticism and kind of change your mindset. It's not an easy thing, but it is. Oh my goodness, that it is powerful to like be able to see that. Alex pulls it out of me a lot because he calls me out on my shit all the time. It's very helpful.
But you need that, right? Like I always tell people, I don't want a yes man. I typically do so much better in business when I have someone around me who we don't fundamentally agree on anything but business. Like I don't want a person who's going to be an echo chamber for me, because then I can't grow, right? I want somebody that's going to say, that's bullshit. Well, you didn't experience that, Tim. So who the fuck are you to speak on that? Like, oh, okay, you're right. I didn't experience it. I don't know what that experience is, right? Like, I don't know. It's kind of like, I don't want to, make this too, I don't want to, muddy up the waters with the audience, but it's kind of like the black experience. Like, the black experience is not one experience, right? There's people who have, I always tease the kids that I mentor and I say, if you have dental insurance, you're not from the hood. Like, you're not a gangster. You know what I'm saying? Like, your parents can take you to the dentist. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to go down to like Baylor Medical School of Dentistry on a Saturday and stand in line for 3 hours so that you can get your tooth pulled. Like, you go pay the copay. You're not gangster, right? On the flip side of that, there's people who've never experienced the black experience. That's where the whole no more OGs things come from. And I'll talk to anyone about this. Like, that's not my life. Like, I grew up in the hood. I saw some crazy shit. I also had really good men around me who were like, you're going to do something different. My family all went to the military. They understood getting out of your environment. My grandfather left Louisiana in the 50s, 60s. In the 50s, that's my dog. She's pissed. And he literally convinced out of his 9 brothers, he convinced 5 of them to move with him to California and literally set up shop in California. Like work ethic is a big thing for us. Like, getting out of your environment was always what I saw. Right. So if that's always what I saw, then that's what I'm going to preach. But people who don't see that, they're going to say that well, you're different. Well, everyone can't go to the military. Well, you know what? Everybody can't sell drugs either. Because, you know what I'm saying? Everybody can't sell drugs. Right. Is that a true statement or not? Like, right. So everybody can't be a thug. Everybody can't be a street dude. Everybody can't be gangster. Like, I've seen people try their hand in the streets and it just didn't work out for them at all. I have a kid right now who was in our mentoring program who's on his 4th year of a 12-year sentence. He's got to do at least 6 years. He had a full ride scholarship to one of the best track schools in the nation. And he came home one summer and he's like, man, I'm broke. I need to make some money. And instead of getting a job, he went out with another friend who was in the streets. And I can't even say allegedly, it's public record now, they were robbing, these jewelry stores and they got caught. And the DA offered them 20 years for a first time offense. Like, and he's a kid with both parents at home that lives in a very affluent community who'd never been in trouble. Like, that's not your life. Your life is to go to school and run track and get an education and get a degree and come back and build up your community. Your life isn't to be this gangster. So it's just like, the streets doesn't work for everyone. Right? And that can be the same thing for you guys. You live in a small town, David. People don't want to hear that shit about real estate investing in that small town. They don't give a fuck. And if you do it, well, you're different. You went to the military, so you have discipline. Okay, they're going to always find a reason to invalidate your willingness and your ability to be accountable to your situation. And you got to leave people like that the fuck behind and focus on the people that actually want it. And they're easier to spot when you make that commitment in your own life.
Yeah, they're projecting because David ain't shit. Trust. What's funny is speaking of sort of like you had mentioned a few times about like your community and how it brainwashes you into what's normal. I'm very grateful for the military community, this military to millionaire community, because sometimes it's actually very rare that I run into, always civilians. Most of the people I hang out with are prior service, and I run into people that are like civilians always. And it does come out. I'm like, wow, you really don't have the same level of like hardcore commitment. No, that's not the right word. Hardcore responsibility that I do. And I don't mean to pump myself up as much as I'm like, I just notice it sometimes. And it comes out every once in a while. I'm like, wow, you guys just don't know the excuses and the lack of responsibility and like you said, the projecting of like, oh, well, that's not my life because some unfairness or whatever. And it's surprising, but I'm grateful that I've found this community, and I sort of am drawn to other military people. Everybody in the military has real thick skin too. That's another thing. You're sitting out, you're like, hey, I'm just speaking truth. And I'm like, dude, truth, people can't take truth. They don't like that.
People in the military don't give a fuck about your feelings because it's like, we just don't give a fuck. Like, I mean, that's just the easiest way to put it, right? Like, all my friends, half of my friends are military. The friends I talk to every day, all the time, they're all military. Hey, we don't give a fuck. It's like, okay, well, how do I complete the mission? Like, I tell my wife and my kid that all the time, you guys, we got to complete this mission. Like, I need to see some urgency. You know what I'm saying? Like, shit, and it's like, we're just getting out of the car, going to the grocery store, man. Why? You know?
Yeah, but we got to do it good. We can't be that's not a, yeah. I feel you. The urgency, that's part of it. Definitely. But there's the level of like, feelings first. I just don't get it. I don't get it. I don't want to get it. I look at people who do that. And I'm like, I'm beating you. So my way was better. And,
I grew up on the fuck your feelings, like that's essentially how I feel. Like I'm going to humanize you, and I'm going to do you. I'm going to have integrity. But if your unwillingness to make a move is based on your feeling, and I'll say this, I always say trust your gut, not your heart, because the heart attacks and the guts filter through shit. And a lot of people are like, damn, I never thought of it that way. Like literally the heart will attack you and your guts pump shit out, right? So go with your gut. Like when people, I want to think about it, and I'll probably get text messages or emails about this. Let me pray about it. It's like, here we go. Trust your heart, not your gut. That's a way for you to back away because you're scared. If you're scared, just say you're scared. Like I would respect you more if you said you were scared, because you can come up with money to do everything else. But when it's time to invest in yourself and create an opportunity for your family for the rest of their life, you want to, I don't know, man. Well, okay. All right, cool. But you're going to go spend $250 on a fucking bottle of champagne that you can get down at the Specs for $50 or $30. All right. And that's everyone. Everyone does that. I've hung out with where I'm the only black person, and everybody does that, right? You know what I'm saying? So you got to make your choices, man. Like I just don't have time for people that get caught up in their feelings every time it's time to make a move.
Yeah. I think we should name this episode "Fuck Your Feelings." I love that. It's one of my favorite quotes. My girlfriend, who is a deep feeler, not a big fan of this. Not a big fan.
Your girlfriend and my wife
got to
know
balance you out.
Yeah. My wife.
But I love that there's communities out there now of, like I said, David and I have this veteran community. It sounds like you have a good chunk of veterans hanging around. It is very hard to instill military sort of principles onto people without them being into it. But it is, for everybody who listens to the show that's not in the military, I know we have some of those people. If you could surround yourself around military people, like we'd love to have you. We're not sitting there. It's not an exclusive group. It's more like, I have this saying I tell David, I've said on this podcast many times, if you go to a conference, a meetup, an event, anything, and there's some military folk there, they will naturally find each other. And it's not because we're walking around going like, oh, I was prior service. Dude, I got out in 2005. I'm not walking around saying it at every breath. It's not like a big part of my life anymore. It's just one of those things that they just, they instilled certain things into me that stick around. And when you just naturally talk about who you are, and the people that gravitate towards you and the people that you repel, right? Like a magnet game, the people that you end up with at the end of the night are the military folks. So if you're not prior service and you're just a civilian, you're listening to the show, go to these events and stick around these people. We are a welcoming group, but you got to, like you said, you got to have thick skin. You can't make excuses. You got to take self-responsibility for yourself. And your feelings come dead fucking last.
This guy, if you're, as Alex said, just a civilian, we care about you. It's so compelling.
As long as you're airborne, if you're elected.
I just love that you're like, you're not all service members. If you're just a civilian, then blah blah blah. We still like you. Blah blah blah. I'm like,
the funny thing is, amongst the military career, it feels like we shit on each other based on the branch you went to. Like, I think it's just a part of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's funny you said what you said. Like when I go into a room, I always find the military guys or girls. Like it's just like it's something about the way we're standing. It's something about the way we're paying attention. It's just something about us, Like you can always, and to the point where sometimes I can tell you what branch you were in. You know what I'm saying? If the food is really shitty and you like it, you were definitely a Marine. If you're complaining about the food, you were probably in the Air Force or the Navy. I mean, you know what I'm saying? If you're like rushing everything, you're probably in the Army, because they hurry up and wait. It's like, fuck, man, when is this going to start? You're an Army guy, aren't you? How the fuck did you know? I could just tell, man. You guys sat around waiting on everything, right? I mean, and then it just like you draw to each other. But the end goal is how do we complete the mission? Like, how do we get from where we are to where we want to be, per se, right? And how do we solve that problem that is going to, have a lasting impact on our families and on our communities and the people that we care about. And get around some military people, man. That you won't find a lot of excuse makers.
Except for me, I'm a piece of shit. Alex looks like
that's
he has
why
something
David. That's why
important to
David
say.
keeps me around. You mentioned earlier about I'm a deeply contrarian person. I think everybody in their life should have a contrarian friend. We're around. I don't know how to. It's not like the military. I don't know how to find them, but there's somebody like me around that will always, no matter what you say, I will pick it apart. Like, that's bullshit. You're lying. Let me check. Let me double check. I'll provide you a different perspective. And so it's good to have those people around. Except for David, I can't help him. He's unsalvageable.
It's true. It's true. Tim, is there anything that we missed? I feel like we've covered the gauntlet. What are we not at, or what have we not touched on?
I mean, so the book, I know you talked about the book, Real Dope, an in-depth comparison between real estate and the dope game. First things first, anyone who's watching this, I don't make a single dime off of this book. 100% of the money goes to my nonprofit organization, which is a registered 501c3. It's called Real Youth Mentoring. And essentially the book says it's about exactly what it sounds like. Like, I literally walk through an internship, if you will, comparing selling drugs to selling houses. Nothing more, nothing less. I mean, you think about, selling drugs, you got everyone from the corner boy to the kingpin, right? Between those two, there's going to be 5 to 8 people eating off of that one brick. It's no different than a real estate investor. When you purchase a property, man, you're going to need a roofer. You're going to need a plumber. You're going to need someone that does landscaping. You're going to need someone that's going to stage. You're going to need someone who's going to come in and do painting, sheetrock. There's so many people that's going to eat off of that one flip. And at the end of the day, you're employing a lot of people who are going to depend on you. So that's essentially what the book is about. It's on Amazon. Like I said, I don't make a penny off of that book ever. I've always used that book to fund our nonprofit, where we teach boys about entrepreneurship, leadership. We travel with the boys. We get them out of their environment. We took our boys on a trip prior to the pandemic to Memphis, Tennessee, Atlanta, Georgia, and Birmingham. And these are kids, many of the kids never had been out of the city of Dallas. There's a lot of people who never leave their city unless they're going to their neighborhood, unless they're going to court or to prison. And so, we took them and we gave them a luxury experience, Mercedes-Benz Sprinter vans. We stayed in a huge mansion in Memphis. We stayed in like high-rise hotel in Atlanta. They had panoramic views. And until this day, out of those 15 kids, 10 of them were still honor roll students. We give out a scholarship to our graduating seniors. All of our seniors graduate with a 700 plus credit score in the business plan. Like, that's what this book is about. That's my tide to the world. Get the book. David liked it. I call it the seatbelt light book, because if you read it on the plane, you'll have it done before the seatbelt light goes off. Like, it's a really quick, fun read, telling you about, some stories are true. Some stories may have been fabricated to protect the identities of the people who participated, but it's just a fun book, But that's something we didn't talk about.
The book is...
Can I get a signed copy?
Absolutely. I'll get you a signed copy.
The book is solid. What I really like about it is your mission, right? And the fact that you're putting the hand down to pull people up. That's absolutely. Those are the kinds of people I want to be around.
Absolutely. And eliminating excuses. Me and my wife were talking because it's election season, and, where we live in Dallas, it's closer to the city. So, you're only seeing a certain set of signs for certain people. And she's like, do you think this person's going to win? I'm like, fuck no, they're not going to win. She's like, why are you saying that? I said, we're in the city. Of course we're going to see all their signs. The moment you get out of Dallas County, you'll never see their signs. She said, I never thought of it that way. And she said, you know what, in contrast to that, I grew up in an area where, I only saw certain things every day. So I thought that was the world. And we had a deep conversation that stemmed from a political sign, right? My job and my goal in life is to get you out of your environment, even if it's just for an hour, so that you can see how other people do shit. And if you like it, you apply it to your life. If you don't, you forget about it forever. And so that's what this is about. And then the No More OGs platform, if you want to go in on that, we can talk about that too.
We got a couple minutes left. Let's give us the quick summary.
So the summary about No More OGs. An OG, if you have never heard that term because you're one of David's neighbors, it's essentially, the term is an original gangster. It's a term that's derived from gang culture, right? And it's evolved into, older people who give younger people advice. And what I am attempting to debunk, to be like Alex in the sense of being a contrarian, is that we don't have any more OGs left. There's not any older, wiser men in their, mid 30s to late 50s that are actually teaching kids good advice and things that are going to actually improve their lives and improve their communities. So I pretty much troll everything that I feel like is a bunch of bullshit, and I actually attach names to it. I pissed off a lot of blue check people by asking them to show their record and what they're actually doing in the communities that they represent as their hood, to actually better it. I have a slogan that says, if you don't own real estate in your neighborhood, you got to stop claiming it. Like, that's not your hood. You're a tenant, right? And as soon as gentrification takes place, you're going to be moved out. So that's essentially what it is. I'm actually creating an academy that's going to teach people life lessons that they never were taught. How to budget, just simple shit like that. How to purchase your first properties, 0% down. How to find programs within your neighborhood or within your municipality that helps with purchasing homes. How to find other people who are mentors, who can be mentors to you, and how to identify if somebody's bullshitting you, like why it's important to own your community, even if you don't live there. Just little practical things like when I go to schools and talking about the importance of a credit score. Your credit score will discriminate you from more than anything now. And as a person that worked, like I said, I was a corporate trainer. I was a manager in banking. I did a lot of hiring. There was more people who didn't get hired because of their credit score than they did for their background, their criminal background. Like, we would hire at one bank that I worked at a bank. They hired felons at this bank, but they wouldn't hire a person fresh out of college with a 580 credit score because the felon had a better credit score. So they were proven to be they could manage the bank's assets better than a person who just got out of college. But people don't understand that. Like, credit is the number one discriminator right now. You can't do shit with bad credit anymore. They check your fucking credit to cut your lights on. But no one talks about that. So I give away literally a free credit course. I think credit repair is a scam. That's controversial. But the credit repair people hate me, right? And you're like, no, why do I have to teach you, how to get rid of shit on your credit when I can teach you how to use credit the right way to build wealth and not be reckless, right? So I literally give out a free credit course, and people inbox me every day. Fuck, like my score went from 550 to 750 in a month simply by paying down my credit cards and opening up a specific account. Like, no one's ever fucking taught me this shit. Okay, there you go. Now give it away to someone, teach them. So that's what I'm all about. That's what the whole No More OGs premise is about. It's teaching people life lessons that they otherwise never would have learned from some old goofy from their neighborhood. That's what I call an OG, an old goofy who sits around and tells you about all the women he fucked and, all the crimes he committed, but never really teaches you about what he's bringing to the community. And that's not just for Black communities. That's for old white communities. That's for old Hispanic communities. That's any community where you got that old guy who doesn't have what we call here in Texas a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of, but he's trying to tell you those Al Bundy 4 touchdowns in one game poke high fucking stories, but he doesn't have anything to show for it. You know what I'm saying? Like, get the fuck out of here. Like, your day is over. There's no more of you. We don't need you anymore. The exit's that way. And I pissed a lot of people off, but that page grew 1,000 people within 2 days because people are fucking tired of that concept. There you go.
I love it.
Yeah, dude, this is good. I mean, our culture definitely needs wisdom, not just, people's shitty advice. So I love that.
Thank you.
And credit repair companies are garbage. They're bullshit. It's a scam. You're right. I don't know why it doesn't get said more. You're right. It's fixing your credit it's the same thing we've been talking about. It's a system of responsibility. You look at it, you have to know the rules of the game, which are not obvious. But once you know the rules of the game, you play the rules of the game, it works. You don't need to pay somebody else to do their.
And don't just take our word for it. No major payment processor will allow credit repair processing. No major credit repair no major payment processor will allow it. You have to go through a high interest payment processor where they're going to charge you fucking $200 a month and take 10% of your earnings because it's a fucking scam. But if I say it out loud, oh, come on, Tim, you're hating. Well, I'm hating. It's bullshit. It's a scam.
Yeah, you get my blood pressure up. It's a fucking scam. You're right. It's high interest debt to fix bad financial responsibility, which is not gonna. It doesn't work. You have to fucking learn the rules of the game.
You got to. And once you learn those rules, It will literally change your life. Like we teach a concept, like I haven't paid interest on credit cards. I haven't paid interest in at least 7 years because my credit is so good. The only time I ever use it is to do, the balance transfers, if you will. And we've literally pulled 30, 40 grand off of a credit card, bought a piece of property, fixed it up, and then rented it out. And through my snowball method, of having this much money that's coming every single month, paid that shit off in 6, 7 months. And now I have a debt that's free and clear that's yielding me 100% on rent. But I couldn't do that with fucked up credit, right? I mean, like we've literally bought houses with credit cards. How the fuck did you do that? I didn't go through credit repair. I actually learned how to fucking use it. And then once you get to the private client status at these big banks, the interest rates on those loans are ridiculous. They give you $2 million worth of lines of credit for 2% interest. Dave, you're in that cool group that I'm trying to get in, that you told me about. You kind of whispered in my ear about that little club you were in that they got about. Like, you know what I'm talking about, though. Those guys don't pay interest on loans.
They don't want David. You didn't say, did you hear that part? They don't like him.
Alex is just mad he's not in it yet.
He didn't get in it.
Yeah, you guys.
His application was no. So Tim, what is the best way for people to get a hold of you? If we've got youth
Absolutely.
listening to this and they're like, I want to reach out to that dude, that sounds awesome. What's the best way to reach out to you?
The easiest way to reach out to me is go to my website, www.timjacksonnow.com. Okay. You can find everything that I have going on there. If you follow me on Instagram, it's at Tim Jackson Now. I just deactivated my Twitter because I hate Twitter. My YouTube, if you type in Tim Jackson Now or Tim Jackson Dallas, you'll see content there. And then the same thing with No More OGs, at No More OGs. Be ready to laugh. Be ready to get challenged. Everything that you thought was the truth, I'm going to show you that it was a lie. It's not inclusive to any group. I want to hear feedback from everyone, because if we live in a world where we think that our opinion is the only one that matters, then we're going to live in a fucked up world. Like you got to do business and you got to deal with everyone in the world. That's a fact, right? So I invite everyone to come over. If it don't apply, let it fly. If you just want to argue, I'm not going to fucking argue with you. I'm not there to argue. I'm there to build. So if I'll tell you quickly, if you don't like what I'm doing, I'm not the one for you. But that's where you find me. I'll say all I have to say. That's where you find me. Go get my free credit course at Tim Jackson Now. It'll change your life. And fire your credit repair company. Fuck them.
I love it.
Fuck them.
Fuck them. Tim, thank you so much for joining us, man. This has been fun.
It's been a pleasure, too. And I want to thank you for having me on.
Thank you for listening to another episode about my journey from military to millionaire. If you liked it, be sure to visit FromMilitaryToMillionaire.com/podcast to subscribe to future podcasts. While you're there, we'd love for you to rate the show, give us a review on iTunes. Now get out there and take action.